Dr. Aura brushed the red dust from the stone tablet with her 4 delicate fingers. Her large eyes, evolved for the soft light of her, squinted in the harsh glare of the dig site's artificial lights. The dead planet around her showed no signs of life. Only cracked earth and empty wind stretched to the horizon. "Another one," she called to her assistant, who hurried over with recording equipment. This was the 15th tablet they had found in the ruins. Each one told strange stories that made no sense. Aura belonged to the race. Her people were scholars and scientists, known throughout the Galactic Confederation for their careful study of history. They lived on peaceful worlds where the weather was always mild and food grew easily. Like most Confederation species, they had evolved from creatures that ate plants and avoided conflict. The tablet in her hands was different from the others. The writing was clearer, carved deeper into the stone. As she read the ancient symbols, her breathing slowed. The story on this tablet was the most detailed yet. It spoke of creatures called humans. According to the tablet, these beings came from a world called Terra or Earth. But the description of their planet made Aura's skin turn pale blue with fear. The tablet said Earth had gravity 3 times stronger than normal. Most Confederation species would be crushed flat on such a world. Their bones would break under their own weight. It described weather that could kill in minutes, storms with winds that could destroy buildings, water that fell from the sky as solid chunks of ice, air so cold it would freeze blood in veins. The tablet told of a star that sent deadly radiation to the planet's surface every day. Most worlds had protective magnetic fields and thick atmospheres to keep such radiation away. But Earth's people lived under this constant threat and somehow survived. There were earthquakes that could swallow cities, mountains that exploded with liquid rock, oceans that could rise up and wash away entire coastlines. The tablet made Earth sound like a world that was actively trying to kill everything living on it. But the strangest part was what it said about the humans themselves. They were described as creatures that hunted by running after their prey for days without stopping. They could heal from wounds that would kill other species. They survived injuries that should have been fatal. The tablet said humans had something called persistence hunting. They would follow an animal for so long that the animal would die from exhaustion. Most predators in the galaxy were built for quick kills. They had sharp teeth or claws or poison, but humans just kept going until their prey gave up. Even stranger was what the tablet said about human emotions. It claimed they could form bonds with other species. They would risk their lives to save creatures that were not even their own kind. They would adopt orphaned animals and care for them like family. Aura had studied biology for her entire adult life. She knew this was impossible. Predators did not care for other species. Evolution did not work that way. A species that wasted resources helping others would die out quickly. She photographed the tablet and sent the images to her colleague doctor on the Confederation. His reply came back within hours. "Aura, this is clearly mythology. No species could evolve under the conditions you describe. The gravity alone would prevent complex life. The radiation would cause fatal mutations. And the psychological traits you mentioned violate basic evolutionary principles." But Aura kept finding more tablets. Each one told similar stories. They described humans building things called cities with millions of individuals living together. They talked about humans developing technology to travel between stars. They mentioned wars between human groups, but also cooperation on a scale that seemed impossible. One tablet was particularly disturbing. It described human children playing games that involved deliberately hurting themselves to become stronger. It told of human adults competing to see who could endure the most pain or go the longest without food or water. Another tablet spoke of human medicine. It claimed they would cut open their own bodies to remove diseased parts, then heal themselves. They would deliberately introduce diseases into their bodies to make themselves immune. They would break their own bones to make them stronger when they healed. Aura brought her findings to the Confederation Science Council on Prime. The Great Hall was filled with representatives from dozens of species. The peaceful sat next to the logical. The artistic shared space with the mathematical. She presented her tablets one by one, translating the ancient text. As she spoke, she could see the disbelief in hundreds of eyes. Some delegates whispered to each other, others made gestures of dismissal. When she finished, Chief Scientist of the stood up. His voice was calm and logical as always. Dr. Ara, we appreciate your careful work, but what you describe is impossible. No world could support complex life under such conditions. No species could evolve intelligence while facing constant death threats. And certainly no species could develop space travel while spending all their energy just surviving. The room filled with sounds of agreement. Delegates nodded their heads and tapped their various appendages in approval. Doctor of the added, the mathematical probability of intelligence evolving on a as you describe approaches zero. Intelligence requires safety, stability, and surplus resources. A species fighting for survival every moment cannot develop abstract thinking. More agreement filled the hall. Ara felt her confidence cracking. But the tablets are real, she insisted. They were found on multiple worlds, written in different languages by different civilizations. They all tell the same stories. Smiled kindly. Mythology often spreads between cultures. Perhaps these humans represent some kind of universal fear. A boogeyman species that early civilizations used to frighten their young into good behavior. The hall erupted in nervous laughter. The idea of mythical monsters seemed absurd to these peaceful, rational beings. I recommend filing this under historical fiction, announced the council secretary. Interesting from an anthropological perspective, but clearly not based on reality. As the delegates filed out, still chuckling about the ridiculous human myths, Ara gathered her tablets. She felt foolish for believing the stories, even for a moment. But thousands of light years away, automated sensors in the outer rim detected something unusual. Ships were approaching Confederation space. Large ships, moving at impossible speeds, broadcasting signals in patterns that matched no known technology. The sensors recorded the data and filed it away for later analysis. No one thought to connect these readings with ancient stories of a mythical species from a world where everything was trying to kill them. The galaxy was about to learn that some myths were warnings. Captain of the Confederation ship Harmony's Dream had conducted first contact procedures 17 times in his career. Each time had followed the same peaceful pattern. Two civilizations would meet, exchange greetings, share basic information about their cultures, and begin trade negotiations. He expected this time to be no different. The sensor readings from the Tau Cygni sector had been puzzling for months. Ships were approaching Confederation space, but they were unlike anything in the database. They were massive, easily 10 times larger than the biggest Confederation vessels. Their hulls were made from materials that confused every scanner. Most strange of all, they were traveling at sublight speeds across interstellar distances. No rational species would do this. It took too much energy, too much time, too many resources. Any civilization advanced enough for space travel would use faster-than-light drives for long journeys. But these ships had been moving at a steady pace for what must have been decades. Either they had incredible patience, or they had reasons the Confederation could not understand. Ship was beautiful in the way all Confederation vessels were beautiful. Smooth curves, elegant lines, peaceful blue and white colors. It was designed by committee with input from dozens of species. Every surface was optimized for harmony and artistic appeal. The ship's bridge reflected this philosophy. Soft lighting, comfortable chairs, plants from various growing in small gardens. The crew worked in quiet cooperation, speaking in calm voices. Violence was so rare in Confederation space that most ships did not even have weapons. "Contact in 30 minutes, Captain," reported his communications officer, a delegate named Ara. "The alien ships have dropped to standard approach speed." "Excellent. Begin broadcasting the Harmony Protocol." The Harmony Protocol was the standard first contact procedure. It started with mathematical sequences to prove intelligence, followed by images of peaceful gardens and family groups from various Confederation worlds. The message was clear. We are peaceful, rational beings who value beauty and cooperation. Settled into his captain's chair and watched the main screen. Soon he would see the alien ships directly. When the human fleet finally appeared on screen, the bridge fell silent. The ships were wrong. Everything about them was wrong. Instead of smooth curves, they had sharp angles. Instead of artistic beauty, they showed pure function. Their hulls were covered in thick armor plating. Weapons systems jutted out from every surface. They looked like they had been built for war by a species that expected the universe to try to kill them. "Captain," whispered his science officer, I am reading weapon systems that could destroy a planet. That cannot be correct. Run the scan again. Already done, sir, 3 times. These ships are armed for total warfare. Felt his throat tighten. In his 17 previous first contacts, the alien ships had been peaceful exploration vessels, trading ships, science ships, sometimes small warships for protection against pirates. But these ships looked like they could fight the entire Confederation fleet and win. Sir, we are receiving a response to our Harmony protocol. Put it on screen. The image that appeared made every Confederation officer step backward in fear. The alien was clearly a predator species. 2 forward-facing eyes designed for tracking prey, a strong jaw with visible teeth, scars on the visible skin, but most disturbing was what the creature was wearing. Armor, not ceremonial armor like some Confederation species wore for special occasions. This was functional battle armor, designed to keep the wearer alive in combat. The alien wore it like everyday clothing. When the alien spoke, its voice carried a tone that activated every prey instinct in the Confederation crew. It was the voice of a creature that was used to being obeyed, used to fighting, used to winning. I am Admiral Sarah of the United Earth ship Indomitable. We represent humanity from the Sol system. We have been observing your space for 37 years. We know your territories, your technology levels, and your defensive capabilities. We are announcing our presence as a courtesy. The transmission paused. Admirals seemed to be studying through the screen, like a predator evaluating prey. We understand our appearance may be disturbing to you. This reaction is typical among species that evolved in safer environments. You will adapt to our presence, as others have learned to adapt to reality. Tried to speak, but no words came out. His species had evolved from small herbivores that survived by hiding from predators. Every instinct screamed at him to flee. We note that your ship carries no significant weapons, continued. This suggests your species has lived in a very protected environment. That protection is now extended to you by humanity. Consider this a gift. Admiral leaned forward slightly. We have eliminated 3 hostile civilizations in the past century. 2 were machine intelligences that consumed organic life. 1 was a hive mind that enslaved other species. If you are peaceful, as your initial communication suggests, you have nothing to fear from us. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the Confederation bridge in shocked silence. Captain, whispered Ara, what do we do? Had no answer. In all his training and all the first contact scenarios he had studied, nothing had prepared him for this. He was looking at a species that seemed designed for war, that spoke of eliminating entire civilizations like it was routine maintenance. Get me a priority channel to Prime, he finally managed to say. The Council needs to know about this immediately. The response from the Confederation came quickly. Emergency sessions were called. The greatest minds in Confederation space tried to understand what they were dealing with. Dr. Ara was pulled from her research and brought to the capital. Her ancient tablets were suddenly the most important documents in Confederation space. Teams of linguists worked around the clock to translate every symbol, every word. What they found terrified them. The tablets were not mythology, they were warnings. Every story about the mythical humans matched what they had just encountered. A species from beings evolved for constant warfare. Creatures that saw the universe as something to be conquered rather than lived in harmony with. But there was something else in the tablets that made the situation even more frightening. The ancient civilizations that had written these warnings were gone. Dead. Extinct. Whether humans had destroyed them or they had destroyed themselves while trying to deal with humanity was unclear. Council emergency session in 2 hours, announced the speaker. All departments, all species representatives, we need to decide how to respond to this threat. But even as the Confederation scrambled to understand the situation, more human ships were arriving at the border. Not just one fleet, but dozens. They spread out along Confederation space like a net, taking up positions that would allow them to control all major trade routes. The humans were not asking for permission to enter Confederation space. They were announcing that they were already there. Admiral's final words echoed through every Confederation government building. You will adapt to our presence, as others have learned to adapt to reality. The galaxy's most peaceful civilization was about to learn what reality looked like when shared with apex predators from a world that had been trying to kill them for millions of years. And somewhere in the dark between stars, automated sensors detected movement. Something else was approaching Confederation space from the opposite direction. Something that made the human ships look small by comparison. The universe was about to become much more dangerous for everyone. The Confederation science vessel Wisdom's light carried the most important diplomatic mission in galactic history. Representatives from 12 major species sat in the ship's meeting room, trying not to show their fear. They were traveling to meet humanity at something called Luna Station. Dr. Aura sat with them, her ancient tablets now treated like sacred texts. Every word had been studied, analyzed, and compared with the brief contact with Admiral. The tablets seemed to be accurate, which made everyone more nervous. Ambassador Horn led the mission. His logical mind had trouble accepting what they might find. "Remember," he told the group, "we are dealing with an unknown species. We must observe carefully and draw conclusions based on facts, not fear." The biologist who had dismissed Aura's findings, looked uncomfortable. "The energy readings from their ship suggest technology far beyond our understanding. Their materials science appears to be centuries ahead of ours. How is this possible?" "Perhaps," suggested Ambassador they are simply different from us. Evolution takes many paths." When Luna Station appeared on their screens, the entire diplomatic team fell silent. It was not a station, it was a fortress. Massive weapons covered every surface. Ships came and went constantly, all of them armed for war. The station itself was built around what appeared to be a dead moon, its surface covered with defensive systems that could destroy entire fleets. "This is Luna Traffic Control," came a human voice over the communication system. "Wisdom's light, you are cleared for docking Bay 7. Please follow the guide beam and do not deviate from the approved flight path, for your safety." Ambassador Horn noticed the warning. Everything about this place suggested humans expected attacks at any moment. The docking bay was enormous, designed for ships much larger than anything the Confederation built. As their ship settled into its berth, they could see human workers moving around in the bay. They wore protective suits, but through the transparent helmets, the Confederation team could see their faces. Predator faces, forward-facing eyes, strong jaws, even through the helmets they looked dangerous. A human officer met them at the airlock. Colonel Torres was tall by Confederation standards, with scars on his hands and face that suggested a lifetime of violence. He moved with the confident walk of a creature that had never been prey. "Welcome to Luna Station," Torres said, his voice friendly but somehow still threatening. "I'll be your guide today. Please stay close to the group. Some areas of the station are dangerous for visitors who are not adapted to Earth-normal conditions." As they walked through the station corridors, the Confederation team saw things that challenged their understanding of life itself. Human children, who could not have been more than young adults by Confederation standards, were playing in a recreation area. But their games involved deliberately hitting each other with padded weapons. They laughed when they were struck hard enough to knock them down. "Exercise," Torres explained, noticing their stares. "Build strong bones and fast reflexes. Most human children start combat training at age 5. Doctor's breathing became rapid. "You train your young for violence." "We train them for reality," Torres replied calmly. "The universe is dangerous. Better they learn this in a safe environment than discover it when their lives depend on it." They passed a medical facility where human doctors were performing surgery on a patient who was awake and talking. The patient seemed completely calm despite having his chest cut open. "Local anesthesia," Torres noted. "He will be back to work in 3 days. Humans heal quickly from trauma." The ambassador made a sound of distress. On his world, any injury requiring surgery meant months of recovery in carefully controlled conditions. But the worst was yet to come. Torres led them to an observation deck that looked out into space. In the distance, they could see a blue and green planet that looked surprisingly beautiful. "Earth," Torres said with obvious pride. "Home to 12 billion humans and counting." Ambassador Horn stared at the planet. According to the tablets, this was the impossible world where humans had somehow evolved, but it looked so peaceful from space. "I don't understand," he said. "The planet appears normal." Torres smiled, and the expression looked predatory even when it was meant to be friendly. "Would you like to visit the surface?" The Confederation team exchanged nervous glances. This was why they had come. To understand humanity, they needed to see there, but every instinct told them it was dangerous. "We would be honored," Ambassador Horn finally said. The trip to Earth's surface was terrifying. The shuttle dropped through an atmosphere that was dense with gases that would poison most Confederation species. The gravity increased as they descended, until several team members had trouble moving. When they landed at something called Colorado Springs, they stepped out into a world that tried to kill them immediately. The air was thin and difficult to breathe. The gravity was crushing. The temperature was barely survivable even with environmental suits. But humans walked around in simple clothing, completely comfortable in conditions that required the Confederation team to wear full life support. Dr. Earth's leading expert on alien biology met them at the landing pad. She was an elderly human with hair and smile lines around her eyes. But even she moved with the easy grace of a predator. "Welcome to Earth," she said warmly. "I hope you don't find it too comfortable. We have tried to choose a mild day for your visit." Mild, this crushing, poisonous environment was mild. Doctor led them to a research facility built into the side of a mountain. As they walked, she pointed out local wildlife. Small furry creatures called squirrels that moved through the trees with impossible speed. Flying creatures called birds that somehow stayed airborne in the thick atmosphere. "Everything here is a predator or has defenses against predators," she explained. "Even the plants have toxins or thorns. Competition drives evolution toward greater efficiency." Inside the research facility, they were shown recordings of Earth's history. Ice ages that had covered most of the planet in frozen death. Asteroid impacts that had wiped out previous dominant species. Volcanic eruptions that had darkened the sky for years. "Humans evolved during the most recent ice age," Doctor explained. "Our ancestors survived by being more persistent than anything else on the planet. They could run for days without stopping. They could go weeks without adequate food. They could heal from injuries and adapt to changing conditions faster than their prey." The recordings showed early humans hunting massive creatures with nothing but simple weapons and endless determination. They would follow an animal for days, never letting it rest, until it collapsed from exhaustion. "Persistence hunting," Doctor said. "Not the fastest kill, but the most reliable. Humans are endurance predators." Doctor was shaking. "How did your species develop technology? How did you have time for science and art when you were fighting for survival?" "Cooperation," Doctor replied. "Humans form social groups for mutual protection. We share resources with individuals who cannot hunt for themselves. We care for our sick and injured until they can contribute again. We protect our young for decades while they learn necessary skills." This was the detail that disturbed the Confederation team most. Most species cared only for their immediate family groups. But the recordings showed humans risking their lives for complete strangers, adopting orphaned children from other families, even caring for animals that served no practical purpose. "We call it empathy," Doctor explained. "The ability to feel concern for others, even those who are not related to us. It allows large-scale cooperation between individuals who have no biological relationship." As the day continued, the Confederation team saw more impossible things. Human athletes competing in events designed to test the limits of endurance and pain tolerance. Human soldiers training in conditions that would kill most species. Human children swimming in water that was so cold it would cause fatal shock in any Confederation citizen. But perhaps most disturbing were the casual conversations. Humans discussing their history like it was normal. Wars that had killed hundreds of millions. Plagues that had wiped out entire civilizations. Natural disasters that had reshaped continents. "How do you maintain sanity?" Ambassador Horn finally asked. "How do you function knowing that death surrounds you constantly?" Doctor looked surprised by the question. "Death surrounds all life, Ambassador. Humans simply acknowledge this reality and prepare for it. We build our societies to survive disasters. We train our people to handle emergencies. We develop technology to overcome natural threats." She gestured toward the mountain around them. "This facility is built to survive nuclear war, asteroid impact, or volcanic eruption. Every human settlement has similar protections. We prepare for the worst possible scenarios because we know they will eventually happen." As they prepared to leave Earth, the Confederation team was quiet. They had seen a civilization that should not exist, beings that had turned environmental catastrophe into evolutionary advantage, a species that saw the universe as a challenge to overcome rather than a home to live peacefully within. On the trip back to Luna Station, Dr. Ara finally spoke what they were all thinking. The tablets were wrong about one thing. They called Earth but it is not. Earth is a training ground. Humans have turned their entire planet into a facility for producing survivors. Ambassador Horn nodded slowly. And now they are in our space, carrying that training with them. As their ship departed human territory, long-range sensors detected something approaching from the galactic rim. Ships, but not human ships. These were larger, more numerous, and they moved with the coordinated precision of a hive mind. They were coming, and the galaxy was about to discover why humans prepared for the worst possible scenarios. The Confederation Emergency Council had been arguing for 3 days. The Great Hall on Prime was filled with shouting voices in dozens of languages. Fear filled the air like smoke. Some delegates demanded immediate military action against humanity. "They are predators," insisted General of the Militant. "They will consume us like they have consumed others. We must strike before they grow stronger." Others argued for isolation. "Build barriers," suggested Ambassador. "Keep them out of our space. Avoid contact until they move on to other regions." A few moderate voices called for careful diplomacy. "They have shown no hostile intent toward us," pointed out Dr. Ara. "Perhaps we can find common ground." The argument was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Outer Rim. Admiral Iran of the Confederation Defense Force appeared on the main screen, his usually calm expression showing pure terror. "Council, we have a situation. Long-range sensors have detected a massive fleet approaching from the galactic rim. Unknown configuration, estimated at over 10,000 ships. They will reach Confederation space in 72 hours. The Council chamber fell silent. 10,000 ships was more than the entire Confederation military. "Have you attempted contact?" asked Speaker Anus. "Yes, sir. No response to any communication attempts. But we have identified their technology. It matches historical records from the archives. Council members, these are ships." The word sent panic through the chamber. Every delegate knew the historical records. There were a machine intelligence that had consumed 3 civilizations in the distant past before vanishing into deep space. They did not negotiate. They did not take prisoners. They consumed organic life to fuel their expansion. "How many ships can we field against them?" the speaker asked. 800 ships maximum. And sir, the ships are each 3 times larger than our heaviest vessels. Our weapons may not be effective against their armor. The panic was growing. Delegates from the outer worlds were already demanding evacuation transports. The military representatives looked grim as they calculated impossible odds. "What about the humans?" Dr. Ara asked quietly. "They mentioned fighting machine intelligences before." General made a dismissive gesture. "You would trust our survival to the predators? They are probably working with these." But Speaker Anus was desperate. "Open a channel to Admiral immediately." The response came surprisingly quickly. Admiral appeared on the screen, looking exactly as dangerous as before. Behind her, they could see human officers working at stations covered with weapon displays. "Confederation Council," said without preamble. "We are aware of the approach. We have been tracking them for 6 months, waiting for them to move into this region." "You knew," Speaker Anus demanded. "You knew they were coming and said nothing." "We informed you that we had eliminated machine intelligences before. They are one of the threats we have been monitoring. We expected them to follow their usual pattern." Leaned forward slightly. "The do not negotiate. They cannot be reasoned with or deterred. They will consume every organic being in Confederation space unless they are completely destroyed. Are you prepared to do what is necessary?" The council chamber was silent. No one knew how to answer. What would be necessary?" Speaker Anus finally asked. "Total war. No retreats, no surrenders, no mercy. They must be exterminated completely, or they will return in greater numbers. This is not a conflict that can be resolved diplomatically." General stood up. "The Confederation does not wage wars of extermination. We are a peaceful civilization." His expression did not change. "Then you will die peacefully while they consume your worlds." The blunt statement hit the chamber like a physical blow. However, continued, humanity offers an alternative. We will handle the threat. In exchange, we want full access to Confederation space and formal recognition as an allied species. You believe you can defeat 10,000 ships? Asked Admiral Iran. Admiral replied, we have been preparing for this fight for 50 years. Yes, we can defeat them. The question is whether you want us to. The debate that followed was brief. With ships only days away, the Confederation had no choice. Agreed, said Speaker Anus. Please save our people. What happened next changed the Confederation's understanding of warfare forever. Human ships began appearing throughout Confederation space. Not just the ships they had seen before, but new vessels that seemed built for specific purposes. Some were massive troop carriers. Others were mobile weapon platforms. All were designed with the same philosophy: function over form, survival over beauty. The human fleet arrangement puzzled Confederation military observers. Instead of forming defensive lines around important worlds, human ships scattered throughout space in seemingly random patterns. What are they doing? Admiral Iran asked his strategic analysts. Unknown, sir. Their formation makes no tactical sense. They appear to be deliberately exposing themselves to attack. The first ships entered Confederation space exactly on schedule. They moved in perfect coordination, like parts of a single massive organism. Each ship was a dark metal construct covered with weapon systems and harvesting equipment. The Confederation fleet, following established doctrine, tried to form defensive positions around populated worlds. They ignored them completely, sweeping past to attack civilian targets. But as the ships spread out to begin harvesting operations, they encountered human vessels. The first battle was short and brutal. Human ships attacked with a ferocity that shocked everyone watching. Instead of trying to disable enemy vessels, they focused on complete destruction. Instead of retreating when damaged, human ships rammed vessels at full speed. Sir, reported the sensor officer aboard Wisdom's Light, the human ship Defiant has just detonated its own reactor to destroy 3 vessels. That is not possible, Admiral Iran replied. No captain would sacrifice their ship and crew for tactical advantage. But the sensor readings were clear. The human ship had deliberately destroyed itself to take enemies with them, and it was not an isolated incident. Across the battlefield, human ships were making similar sacrifices. Admiral's voice came over the fleet communication channel. All Confederation vessels withdraw to safe distance. Human fleet is implementing Extermination Protocol 7. What is Extermination Protocol 7? Admiral Iran asked. The answer became clear over the following hours. The human fleet was not trying to win battles in the traditional sense. They were systematically hunting down every single ship and destroying it completely. Human tactics were unlike anything in Confederation military doctrine. They used their own ships as weapons. They detonated massive explosives in their own fleet formations to catch ships. They sent boarding parties to manually destroy enemy vessels from within, knowing the boarding teams would die in the process. But most disturbing was the coordination. Every human ship, every human soldier, every human pilot operated with perfect understanding of their role in the larger strategy. They accepted casualties that would break any other military force. Dr. Ara watched the battle reports with growing understanding. They are pack hunters, she told Admiral Iran. Like the Persistence hunters from there, they are willing to sacrifice individuals to ensure the survival of the group. The evolved to overwhelm less aggressive species found themselves fighting an enemy that was more willing to die violently than they were. For the first time in their expansion across the galaxy, the machine intelligence encountered a species that matched their own ruthlessness. The war lasted 6 months. When it ended, not a single ship remained functional. The machine intelligence had been completely exterminated across 3 star systems. The final battle took place in this main staging area. Human ships surrounded the last fleet and began a systematic destruction that accepted no surrenders because none were offered. The battle continued until every vessel was reduced to scrap metal. Admiral's final report to the Confederation was brief. Threat eliminated. Technology has been cataloged and will be dismantled to prevent reconstruction. Human casualties acceptable. Mission status complete. The Confederation was left to absorb what they had witnessed. An entire machine intelligence, one that had consumed civilizations, had been wiped from existence in less than a year. Not defeated, not driven away, but completely exterminated. How many humans died? Speaker Anus asked during the post-war briefing. 200,000, Admiral replied calmly, mostly volunteers for high-risk operations. The number stunned the Confederation leadership. They had been prepared for millions of casualties, but humanity had planned and executed the campaign with such precision that their losses were minimized even while accepting what other species would consider suicidal risks. Why, Dr. Aura asked, why did your people sacrifice themselves for us? Admiral looked surprised by the question. Because that is what intelligent species do, Doctor. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We eliminate threats to peaceful civilizations. We make the galaxy safer for those who choose cooperation over conflict. As human ships began withdrawing to their previous positions, the Confederation realized the galaxy had fundamentally changed. They were no longer alone in space. They now had neighbors who saw threats as problems to be solved through overwhelming force. And for the first time since the formation of the Confederation, its member species felt truly safe. 1 year after the war ended, the galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. Dr. Aura stood in her expanded office at the Galactic Cultural Exchange Institute, surrounded by thousands of documents about humanity. Her ancient tablets, once dismissed as mythology, now sat in a place of honor. She had become the Confederation's leading expert on human culture, a job that grew more complex every day. Today she was meeting with her student, a young named Aura who had volunteered for the Human Cultural Adaptation Program. The program was controversial but necessary. With humans now permanent neighbors, Confederation species needed to understand how to interact with them. Are you certain you want to do this? Dr. Aura asked her student. Living on a human world for 1 year is not like visiting Luna Station. You will be exposed to their full culture. Aura nodded nervously. She was barely adult by standards, with the pale blue skin and large eyes of her species. I need to understand them, Doctor. My generation will grow up in a galaxy with humans. We must learn to adapt. Dr. Aura smiled sadly. The young ones adapted faster than the older generations. They had to. Remember what I have taught you. Humans express friendship differently than we do. They may hit you on the shoulder as a greeting. This is not aggression. They may invite you to dangerous activities as a way of showing trust. They may tell stories about their injuries or disasters they have survived. This is normal conversation for them. Aura took notes carefully. What about their emotional responses, Doctor? Ah, yes. Humans cry when they are sad, but they also cry when they are happy. They laugh when things are funny, but they also laugh when they are nervous or uncomfortable. They show affection by sharing food and including you in their family groups. But remember, to humans, friendship means they would risk their lives for you. This is not just politeness. Across the galaxy, other species were having their own adjustments. On the water world of, human scientists worked alongside native to explore deep ocean trenches. They had always considered these areas too dangerous, with crushing pressures and unknown creatures. But humans treated the exploration like an adventure. Dr. Sarah Martinez, leading the human team, had earned the trust of the by diving deeper than any of them thought possible and returning with samples from the ocean floor. She did this while laughing about the interesting pressure and cute local wildlife. The researcher Ra tried to understand this attitude. Dr. Martinez, were you not afraid when the deep-sea predator attacked your diving suit? Sarah checked her equipment casually. Scared? That thing was only about 12 feet long. Back on Earth, we have ocean predators 3 times that size. This was more like meeting a curious neighborhood cat. Ra's gills fluttered in distress. On, a 12-foot predator would be considered a legendary monster. But not all interactions went smoothly. The collected still struggled with human individualism. Their society was built on perfect cooperation, with every member knowing their role from birth. Humans confused them by constantly making individual decisions that seemed to conflict with group efficiency. Ambassador High Voice of the Collective sent regular reports to the collected about their human neighbors. The humans continue to make irrational choices. Yesterday, a human engineer named Jackson modified his ship design without consulting his superiors, claiming it would work better this way. When challenged, He said he had a feeling about the modification. The ship's performance improved by 15%, but this does not excuse the breakdown of proper authority structures. The collected could not understand how human technology advanced so rapidly when their scientists ignored established procedures and experimented based on intuition. The energy-based had perhaps the most difficulty adapting. They existed as pure thought, experiencing the universe through controlled electromagnetic fields. Human physicality disturbed them. Brightsong of Understanding tried to explain to his fellow, the humans deliberately expose themselves to discomfort. They exercise until their bodies are damaged, then allow them to heal stronger. They eat food that causes pain to their digestive systems for pleasure. They jump from high places attached to elastic cords for entertainment. I cannot comprehend why beings capable of creating perfect comfort choose to experience suffering. But despite these cultural conflicts, some relationships flourished. The scholarly found human literature and history fascinating, though they needed psychological preparation to handle the violent content. Human children's stories often involved characters overcoming impossible odds through courage and determination. Doctor, the biologist who had once dismissed humanity as mythology, now spent his days studying human evolutionary biology. His latest paper, Adaptive Advantages of Evolution, was required reading at universities across Confederation space. What we initially perceived as barbarism, he wrote, is actually highly sophisticated survival strategy. Humans have evolved not just physical resilience, but psychological tools for thriving in hostile environments. Their capacity for hope in desperate situations, their ability to find humor in tragedy, their willingness to sacrifice for abstract ideals, these are evolutionary adaptations as important as their physical strength. The human exchange programs produced mixed results. Young Confederation citizens adapted better than expected to human environments. They learned to appreciate human concepts like adventure and challenge. Some even adopted human recreational activities, though always in carefully controlled conditions. But it was the older generations that surprised everyone. Ambassador Horn, the logical who had led the first diplomatic mission, requested assignment as permanent liaison to human space. His explanation was simple. Logic dictates that we must understand our protectors, and I find human problem-solving methods educational. He had been particularly impressed by humanity's approach to the broken technology. Instead of simply destroying it, human scientists had studied every component, learning how it worked, then developed countermeasures for similar technologies. We prepare for threats that do not yet exist, Admiral had explained. Though we're one type of machine intelligence, others may be different. We will be ready for them too. This long-term thinking amazed the Confederation species. They planned for known problems, but humans planned for problems that might never occur. The greatest changes came in Confederation military doctrine. For centuries, their fleet had been designed for policing actions and defending against pirates. Now they had to consider threats like the enemies that could not be negotiated with or deterred. Human military advisors worked with Confederation officers to develop new strategies. The lessons were difficult for peaceful species to accept. Your ships are too beautiful, Colonel Torres explained to a group of Confederation engineers. Beauty is good, but survival is better. Your bridges have windows because you want to see the stars. Our bridges are buried deep inside our ships because we expect people to shoot at us. Slowly, Confederation ship designs began to change. New vessels were still elegant compared to human ships, but they were also more practical, more survivable, more ready for a universe that might not always be peaceful. The most important change was philosophical. The Confederation began to accept that peace required strength to defend it. Dr. Ara saw this change most clearly in her students. The young people who went through the human cultural programs came back different. They still valued cooperation and harmony, but they also understood that sometimes force was necessary to protect what they loved. We are not becoming human, explained Ara after completing her year on Earth. We are learning from humans. There is a difference. The final test of the new relationship came when long-range sensors detected another approaching fleet. For a moment, panic spread through Confederation space. But this time, the response was different. Human ships moved immediately to intercept positions. Confederation vessels took supporting roles, using tactics learned from human advisors. The message to the unknown fleet was clear. This space was protected. The approaching ships turned out to be refugees from a civilization destroyed by a different machine intelligence. But the coordinated response showed how much the galaxy had changed. Admiral addressed the Confederation Council 1 year after first contact. Her appearance was the same, but the Confederation delegates no longer flinched when she spoke. "Members of the Confederation," she said, "when we first arrived in your space, you feared us. This was rational. We are predators from a hostile world armed for total war. We understand your fear." She paused, looking around the chamber. "But you misunderstood our nature. Yes, we are predators, but we are pack hunters, not solitary killers. Our pack now includes you. We have adopted you into our protection." Dr. Ara stood up from her observer seat. "Admiral, I have studied the ancient tablets that told of humanity. They said humans would either destroy civilizations or protect them. How do we know which we are to you?" Admiral smiled, and this time it looked genuinely warm instead of predatory. "Doctor, you have read the tablets, but you missed the final passage, the one that explains human nature." She gestured to an aide, who displayed the last tablet Dr. Ara had discovered. The final lines, which had been too damaged to read clearly before, now appeared on the screen in perfect translation. "The humans do not make war upon the universe. They make the universe safe for those who cannot." "That is what we are," Admiral concluded. "We are the species that stands watch against the dark. We are the ones who fight so others do not have to. We are the guardians of civilizations that choose peace." The chamber was silent for a long moment. "And now," continued, "human ships patrol your borders. Human sensors watch for threats you have not imagined. Human soldiers train for wars you hope never come. Not because we rule you, but because we have chosen to protect you." As the session ended, Dr. Ara looked at her ancient tablets one more time. The stories had been true but incomplete. Humans were predators, warriors, but they were also protectors. The galaxy was no longer the peaceful, predictable place it had been, but it was also safer than it had ever been before. Somewhere in the dark between stars, human ships continued their patrol, watching, waiting, ready. The universe still contained unknown threats, but now it also contained a species that greeted threats by asking, "Is that the best you've got?" And for the first time in galactic history, civilizations could sleep peacefully knowing that someone else was standing guard.